Welcome back to Dream Building 101. I am your host, Dr. Ebony Potts. I am also the author of Next Exit, Your Destiny, Taking the Road Towards the Life of Your Dreams. And on this channel, we interview individuals from all different walks of life who are walking on their path and fulfilling their dreams, and hopefully can inspire you to do the same. And today, I have the pleasure of interviewing the very first administrator that hired me as a real, I won't say real, but a full-fledged assistant principal. And I worked with her in the Atlanta area. And she's someone that I always speak very highly of, phenomenal administrator. And she has now transitioned into the role of educational consultant / professor. And her name is Dr. Lisa Stueve, but I'm not sure if that's still her name. She's had some really great things happen in her life, but I'll let her tell you more about that. And good morning, ma'am. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing fine, Dr. Potts. Thanks for having me this morning.
Oh, yes. So I'm very excited to talk to you because, like I said, you've had so many things happen since we last actually saw each other in person. We've been in contact kind of off and on, but since we saw each other in person, but I'll let you tell the people what you do and tell a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, so the educational consultant / professor is a good way to start talking about what it is that I do. But with a transition in my life around 2013-14, I started just working at things that gave me joy. And so I still teach a little bit directly to K-12 students, mostly high school, but a little bit of middle school. And I've been able to teach math, which I enjoy very much, and actually even a little bit of computer programming now, which was nice for me to bring back into my arsenal. I hadn't done that in quite a number of years. I do some higher education graduate teaching for teachers who want to become better at their craft and advance their own learning. And then I do a little bit of work for some contractors, vendors, but all related to education and predominantly mathematics if it's not higher education working directly with teachers. So I enjoy that very much. And then since we have seen each other, I found and then married the man of my life because I am 55 years old and had never married before. So we are now, I think we're at 8 months. So this is the longest I've ever been married. I've been married 8 months. And then my daughter found and married what I hope is hers, but she's considerably younger. But her and her husband and her new son, who is 8, live in Augusta. And they seem to be happy and settled. And even with all that has happened in the last year, for everyone, we seem to be doing just fine. I will never actually write a book, but if I did, I would write one and call it 2 Weddings in a Pandemic, because we both got married last year.
Well, that I'm sure was, a lot, because just the pandemic in itself is a lot for most people to absorb. And then, a wedding and then another wedding, but those are very joyous things. And I'm so happy for you and your daughter, because, the last time I saw her, I think she was in high school too, I think, or maybe even middle school. Yeah, it's been a long time. So, that makes me feel old. But I'm glad that she has found happiness, and you two, you both deserve it. So what was your career path like once you graduated? How did you end up now? Obviously our paths crossed at some point, but you had a whole story before you met me, and obviously your story has been. So kind of how did you end up, doing what you're doing?
Well, it's funny because I'm a child of the 80s. And so I went to college to get the job that would make the most money. That's when middle management was fat. And my undergraduate's actually in business. And I worked in industry for my career from my graduation from college, my undergraduate, until I was nearly 30. And I went back to school because I had found a job in industry where I got to be a training manager, and I loved it. I loved watching people who really wanted to do something learn how and then go be successful. So I really enjoyed that aspect. And so I went back to school to be a teacher, and I chose math because it's what comes easy for me. And I figured what needed to be difficult was the how and the who, not the what. So I became a math teacher the year I turned 30. And then stayed in college, got all the paper, did my master's degree in math, did my specialist degree in mathematics, but switched to educational leadership for my doctorate. And then my path in education was all fortuitous. I have some skill in computer science, and so got some opportunities. One of my favorite projects when I was still a classroom teacher was a collaborative with Bell South's Intelligent Media Ventures, which used to be their R&D arm out of Atlanta, and MIT and the Boston Globe. I got to do some work with that group doing some computer science things, but this was in the really early 90s. So it's been a while, but I'm back doing some of those kinds of things now, which I really enjoy. And then I happened to get promoted into a technology specialist position when they were new, when all schools were going to computers. And unfortunately, this interview is showing my age. But, and then I shifted into assistant principal and realized that you could have more of an impact than I thought you could as an administrator.
Sick of sitting at your job, daydreaming about the life that you would have if you'd won that big jackpot? Do you want to design a life for yourself that you don't need to take a vacation from? Do you have a vision for your life that you just don't know how to make a reality? Next Exit Your Destiny is a witty, comical, yet straightforward guide that gives you common sense, easy to follow steps to make the life you dream of the life that you live. Get off of Unfulfilled Street, Unhappy Way, and Sunday Night Blues Boulevard and take the next exit towards your destiny today.
And then moved into where I met you. I had been in that school, I think, 3 years before you became an assistant principal with me when I was principal there at North Springs, and loved the role of principal. Did not love the period of life, I guess, because with all the economic crises and the pressures and the increased class size and reduction or freezing of pay, it was a really difficult 5 years. And of course, during that time is also when my mother got sick and passed. So lots going on in that particular moment in time. And then I already started with what I'm doing now. So that brings me up to current.
Oh yeah. So that's definitely a winding path. And, we actually lost our mothers around the same time. So that time frame was kind of a big flux for me as well. But lots of lessons from that time period for me, for sure. And I'm sure for you as well. So tell us about a challenge that you faced during your path, or a turn back moment, if you will, and how did you overcome it? And what did you learn from that experience?
One, I had a role when I was still in Gwinnett County Public Schools that was a necessary role, but a difficult one. I had been invited into a position where my whole existence was me and a small team were to support schools that were struggling with AYP, trying to help them identify data, recognize and treat and change pedagogy for teachers, support systems for students. And while it was really good work, it was difficult work because no one wants to be on the receiving end of that, because that means that your school's struggling, right? So it's really challenging. And during that time, trying to navigate the political arena of that, where, someone doesn't necessarily want your help, but they know they need it, was really, really challenging. And then towards the end of that experience, the person under whose leadership that had occurred left the system. And you know how that leaves that power vacuum and there's change. And it was big. It was really big for me because it didn't necessarily unhinge me in that way, but it made me realize that I needed to know what I wanted and I needed to be doing that instead of doing this role that I had kind of pretty much by happenstance worked my way into. And I had always wanted to be a building leader, and I thought I'd always wanted to be a high school principal. And I would not trade those years of experience for anything in the world, but it is a job that you have to want desperately because it consumes you. So I then left Gwinnett and went to Fulton and had my first and only principalship in Fulton County. So
what do you love about what you do currently? And what is the most challenging aspect of what you do?
So what I love about what I do currently, honestly, is still my direct interaction with, and the with can be anything. When I'm working consulting with a school system and I'm working directly with coaching with teachers or administrators, working directly with them is what I enjoy the most. Or if I'm teaching a graduate class to teachers who are trying to improve their pedagogy and prove their craft because they're already masters. They're teaching already. Many of them have been teaching as long or longer than me sometimes, but they want to continue to grow, and working directly with them is what I enjoy the most. And then I do still teach K-12, and I have just darling young ones. And it's just such a different perspective given my history than it was when I first started teaching. There's so many things that I don't know that tolerance the right word, but it's a good one, that it's like, yeah, that just doesn't bother me. It's like, we're just going to have to fix this. These are this. But I remember being younger and fresher as a teacher, and some things just being like, I know we've done this a million times. And now I'm like, okay, let's do one more. We need one more. And I love it. I would say that is the most joy I get, is the direct working with any of the individuals, regardless of the circumstance. But the more challenging thing is juggling all of that. Since I don't work full-time for any one individual, and I don't have a set schedule, it is a blessing and a curse.
So tell us something, a recent life lesson that you learned or had to grapple with in the last 2 or 3 years that, has had an impact on you, that I'm sure that once you kind of explain it and you absorb it, that you can help someone else with.
Well, I think maybe taking risks. So I have had a couple of different opportunities presented to me, and I was unsure about my ability and time. I mean, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. And so I've taken a few risks, and one was a project I started last year right after COVID. And that certainly changed my personal perspective, because as a consultant, I was like, whoa, this pandemic could mean I have less opportunity, or it could mean I have more. And that is actually what has turned out to be true. But that is because of my background in virtual and technological education. It's just helped tremendously. But that being said, I interviewed for and took on a consulting position with a new client who wanted what they thought they wanted in mathematics built, because they're going from higher ed into K-12, and they're starting in high school, which is actually pretty unusual for new school starts. And they wanted a K-12 math expert as a part of their build team. And it's morphed its way into mathematics elective to run in tandem, because for those listening, if you're not in education, mathematics in high school is one of the places that isn't as pure, and not everyone sees that. But in ninth grade, most students take a similar science. It might be variated, but very little. Most students take a similar language arts, but for mathematics, it really depends on where your path has taken you. And so you can be anywhere in ninth grade student in high school can be from anywhere from algebra to calculus. Developing something like that when your student range of ability and interest and exposure is from algebra to calculus presented a problem, because they didn't want to limit entry by saying, oh, you have to be at least here, or you need to be here exactly. So that meant that the students would be limited, right? If I'm not in geometry, I can't take this class, but I'm really interested in it. So we developed something called quantitative thinking, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it at this time, once I've actually gotten to execute on what was being built. The building got difficult and a little, I'm trying to think of the right word. Like, I don't want to use a really negative word, but it does. You get in the middle of a project and you're like, I feel like I'm never going to see the end of this project. I just need it to be finished so that I can do the next phase of this project to decide if any of it has been worthwhile. But the quantitative thinking left things just incredibly wide open. I could do absolutely anything I want. And so we are working from a position of phenomena in the world. We're working from some work by Conrad Wolfram, and we're taking students and trying to help them see what the world looks like through the mathematical lens. But the development in the middle got a little tough.
Definitely, I can understand that, because that is, it's easier to build things and to construct things when you have more narrow parameters. It's easier to, okay, here's step 1, 2, step 3, but when it's kind of like, hey, just build a math course, it's kind of like, okay, well, where, you have to kind of narrow that down. But that class sounds very interesting, because the first thing I was thinking of as you were describing is that would definitely help with the, when am I going to use this stuff kid, which is most of us. I see memes on Facebook all the time, like, okay, so when have you ever had to use slope intercept in your real life?
Right.
Like,
right.
When are you using that stuff? So, I think, right. So, why am I learning this? So I think that practical application of those real world ties to what these students are actually doing and why they would need this information, I'm sure helps, because math is not a subject that, it is a subject that a lot of kids struggle with. So to actually be able to tie that to something like, oh, okay, I might need this as a carpenter or engineer or this or that, that definitely helps with retention, and it helps with interest, and it helps with buy-in. So it sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. And I will tell you, this is my nugget that I've taken away and I've shared with everybody who had let me tell them, is I had a student on day 2 express in their journal how frustrated they were because they thought this was a math class, and they felt like, because I've told them process and communication is going to be way more important than correct solution. And this is a strong math student who, as a young freshman, is in pre-calculus, but just incredibly frustrated that there wasn't a right way and there wasn't a final solution. I mean, really, really frustrated. Well, a couple of weeks later, what I got in a journal entry was, I think this class might help me understand why I'm good at math. And I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. You're actually thinking about why this process is something that you manage personally, quickly and naturally, and it doesn't come that way for everyone. So I just really love that it's giving them a different way to think about this discipline, because math's never the sexy discipline. That's always the science or the language arts, where it's the romance and the literature, or I have discovered now how they made this happen, because that's the science aspect. But none of those things work without math. People forget that. It's like you can't be an engineer or a scientist without a good bit of math under you.
That's true. That's true. And I think that class sounds like a class that makes people who are math brained use the other portions of their brain as well in ways that they may not be used to doing in math, because, it's just about analytics and concrete sequential type things that, this equals that, but, being able to apply that in a way that forces you to use those other portions of your brain, which you're going to have to use. Because, even if you're, a great statistician or, a mathematician or whatever it is, you're going to have to market yourself. You're going to have an interview. You're going to have to interact with something besides numbers. So, that sounds like a really good class and a great experience. If you could go back in time and speak to 20-year-old, 25-year-old Lisa Stueve, what would you tell her?
Well, I am a little headstrong and quite independent, and I think that a lot of very successful people, gender notwithstanding, are, but I'm also a product of the 80s, so that glass ceiling was quite low and difficult for women of my generation. And somewhere, and I'm not even sure when it happened or why, because I don't think it was a lesson I learned or even a situation that happened to me personally, but I decided that asking for help and really leaning on your support was not good. It made you look weak. It made people aware that you were unable. And I would definitely take that back. I would say, lean hard on your support, listen to your mentors, go to them. They want to help you. They want to see you be successful, and it will make your path wider and deeper instead of so narrow because it's all you can manage on your own.
That's definitely good advice. There was a young lady that I interviewed a few interviews back who is now the chief of high schools in Tampa and Hillsborough. And, she expressed the same thing, her mentor tells her, hey, take advantage of your advantages, take advantage of them. They're there, take advantage of them. No one gets anywhere on their own. And I've also, kind of struggled with that a bit, as you and I have kind of conversed about, losing our parents, and it kind of sent me kind of on a tailspin. And as a result, I've had to reach out to you and reach out to others. And I felt guilty about that. I felt like, oh my gosh, here she is again, asking for this or asking for that. And that, of course, that's in my own head. No one's expressed that to me. But, I definitely have struggled with that as well. But, as I listen to you and I listen to her, everyone takes advantage of their advantages. Why am I feeling guilty about that? And, everyone needs help. Everyone, and it comes back full circle. Someone's going to need me as well, and just pay it forward later. So if you could tell someone out there who is just getting on their path or might be doing a career change or career switch, which with most people, what would you say to them?
Well, it's actually something I've had for a long time, but you should have your own personal code of ethics, your own personal lines you will not cross, and hold hard to them, because the only person you have to look at in the mirror is you, and you need to be able to do that with some sort of joy and some sort of feeling that your character is still fully intact. That is a good one. And then the other would be to make sure that what you do really does bring you joy. You know, if it is not bringing you joy, then actually consider a change, whatever that change might be. It might be the exact same job in a different circumstance, but it might be a different aspect of that industry or career. It might be that you just need to rethink it completely. But I have had many different opportunities in my life, and I'm grateful for all of them, but some have brought me more joy than others, and they're the ones you need to hold on to.
Yes, yes. Anything else you want to add, or any questions for me?
Well, I do have some questions for you about your book. I want to know how you feel about having finally completed that work and working towards sharing more through this podcast process that you have to support the work, and some of the feedback you're getting from both colleagues and strangers.
Well, having finished the book, it was a relief because as I've spoken on previous interviews, you know, it's kind of like a tugging to write it a long time ago. And, you know, all of these pieces, I'm not a writer, I'm not an author, but it, for me, is a testimony to kind of when God is tugging on you to do something, do it. Just do it. You know, all of those things that I said that, oh, I'm not this and I don't know how to do that. As soon as I started to try to do what I was told to do or what I felt like I was led to do, all of that stuff dissipated. It disappeared. The writing process was so much easier for me, and the information to share came, I mean, I don't know how to say it. It just came very easily. It just flowed. And I'm glad that it's out there. I've spoken to individuals that have read the book, and you know, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and which is really kind of all I really wanted. It wasn't, you know, oh, you're so great. It just, I wanted it to help somebody. That's all. You know, there are lessons that I've learned, and I'm still learning, clearly. You know, I'm not, 95, and I pray to get there one day. So I have quite a few more lessons to learn, but there are things that I've learned that I'm sure could help someone else. And it's not that, excuse me, I said anything that was so profound that isn't out there somewhere. But sometimes when you are at a particular point in life, you can hear something in a way that can send you on the path that you need to be on just a little bit quicker, with just a little bit more ease, because you're ready for it at that time. And I hope that the book, as well as these interviews, can help someone to get to where they want to be and where they need to be.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. So where can anyone that is watching get in contact with you? What's your business address, your web address? You do Instagram or Facebook, obviously any of that stuff where people can get in contact with you.
Oh, well, you alluded earlier to, did I have a name change? And I was like, no, I'm just too old. I don't know that I could remember it if I changed my name. So I am still Dr. Lisa Stueve, and Stueve is how you spell that. And it is incredibly uncommon. So if you Google that, you'll find me. My company name is Dordean Services, and the LLC came up as a need, as a contracted employee, and I named it, it's a Gaelic word for hummingbird, actually, and I named it after my mom. It's all very personal about how that name came about. It is not attached at all to education or consulting. It is just personal. But I've discovered that it was actually a pretty common name. Getting my company name in the state of Georgia, I had to change it to Services to use the Gaelic. And I was like, wow, I'm surprised. So either of those will get you to me. I am on Facebook, but I don't really do Facebook for anything other than family, but you can find me there. And then just finding me, L Stueve, anything, Lisa Stueve, L Stueve, you'll find me and you can send me a note. Happy to have any kind of interaction with folks that have questions.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much. I have so appreciated speaking with you today, and I'm sure that you have dropped some information and nuggets that will help someone along their journey. So I appreciate it on their behalf. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. And if you, all the information that Dr. Stueve has given about herself, we'll put down in the comments under this video. And don't forget to pick up your copy of Next Exit, Your Destiny, Taking the Road Towards the Life of Your Dreams, and information on how to purchase the book will also be in the comments. And I appreciate you guys for being here. Thanks again, Dr. Stueve, for being here.
You're welcome.
And
thank you.
God bless everyone and have a great day.